This video, we're going to download some models of some bolts from McMaster Carr, which is the Bunnings of America, and we're going to insert these into the design to bolt these swerve modules into place. So at the moment, you can see our swerve modules are held in place. We can't move them around, but there's no bolts in this model holding it in. And we want to try and model everything we're going to use in our robot to see whether things are going to get in the road later on. So to insert a component, we go up to the Insert menu, and then we can go to McMaster Carr Component. This is where we can then filter down on these bolts. First of all, we need to know what type of bolt we actually need to insert here. So we're going to go back to the Swerve Drive Specialist website, and we're going to find our swerve module, which is this one here. Going to see if we can find a drawing of this swerve module. There we have a layout drawing, PDF drawing. And now I can see my holes across here. They're 1 inch apart, and they're 8 lots of 1/4 -20. What that means is 1/4 of an inch wide and then 20 threads per inch. So now that we know that, we can search for that in our McMaster Carr. Okay, so we want a bolt. We want a inch base bolt. And then this is the thread size. So this is where we have the 1/4 inch 20. 1/4 inch in size, 20 threads per inch. The next thing down is the length of the bolt. Now, I've found the bolt that we're going to use, and this is the bolt here. So this is a 2.5 inch long Phillips drive on the end of it, and it's a round head bolt. So we're going to search for that so we can get the CAD model of that in our design. So our length is 2.5 inches. And as we do this list on the left-hand side here gets smaller and smaller. But at the moment, that's still a lot of things in that list. So we're still going to keep scrolling down here and supplying more information. Ours is fully threaded. Not sure of the materials. I'm not going to worry about that. It's a rounded head. So I'm going to click that one. It has a Phillips head, which is the screwdriver that goes into it. And it is a round head. Okay, and now we're actually down to there's only one thing left on the left-hand side over here. And this is, if you were to buy them from McMaster Carr, you could buy a pack of 50 of these for $11.90 in US of A. Right, but then we're not interested in buying them. We actually just want their CAD model. If I scroll down here, I can see that there's a little drop-down box here. When you go into this the first time, it's probably going to read 3D SolidWorks here. We want to install a 3D step file. Step file is a generic file format used for CADing parts in general. So if I click download now, that will download from McMaster Carr, and it'll actually place the part, once it's finished its downloading, directly into the origin of my design. Now my origin's in the middle, that's why it's coming to the middle. These bolts are going to come up from underneath. So I'm going to turn that bolt over so that it's facing the right way, checking that this is 180 here. Then I'm going to go, okay. Now I need to get this bolt into the right spot. It's got to go over here. Now it's impossible to move it around, so we're going to use the joint command to join this bolt into the right spot here. We've got to think about what surfaces on this bolt are going to be touching. And if we zoom in here, we know that this surface here on our bolt is going to be touching on this face here. So that's where we're going to do the joins between those surfaces. So I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to do a J for join. All right, and then I'm going to come over here, and this is a typical example where if you try to go into the middle to click onto that thing, you lose it. This is why it's good to hold down the control key or the command key when you're out on the face, then go in and click the center of that. So I want the center of that circle to be on the center of this circle here. So I'm going to zoom in here, hold control, and click there. And it's going to bring our bolt up and put it into place in our design and create a joint for it. Now clicked OK to lock that into place. Now I could go through that process a lot of times, but it's it now that I've got the part, I don't want to have to go searching for it every time in a McMaster Carr. So I can actually just create a copy of this part in the design now. So to do a copy, it's M on the keyboard, which is a move copy down here. So I'm just going to press M on the keyboard. The thing I want to move is a component, because this component has come in as its own component over here in my document tree. You can see our 4 side pieces, our 4 swerve modules, and our 1 bolt. Okay, so I'm going to click that bolt over here. All right, it says 1 selected. Now, before I actually grab the thing and move it, I actually want to click this create copy. Okay, it's most important that you do that before you move it, because once you start moving it, the create copy option disappears. So now that I've clicked create copy, if I grab this bolt and start to drag it this way, it leaves the original one behind, and it creates a copy. Now, I know that these are on 1 inch spacings, these holes. So that's like 1 inch, that's 2 inches, and then that's 3 inches. 75 mils is not exactly 3 inches, so I'm going to use the proper units. So I'm going to go -3 inches, and then that's going to put it in exactly the right spot. Now I want to move copy this one again. So what I can do is I can move it 2 inches in this direction and then 2 inches in this direction to get it down here. So I'm going to do M for move. I'm just going to select my last component in the document tree. This is another way you can select parts instead of trying to click on them in the drawing. All right, I want to make sure I click create copy first. Then I'm going to move this way, -2 inches. And I'm going to zoom out a bit here so I can grab the other move arrow, which is this one, start moving it in that way, and then type in 2 inches there. And that's moved to there. Okay, and then I'm going to move that once more. So M for move, this component, create a copy in this direction, 3 inches. Okay. Right, that's copied our bolts in. So now we have 4 bolts over here. Right, this one here we jointed right at the start. These ones here actually haven't been jointed. So you can pull them out. I'm not going to Control Z to put that back into place, right? But to go around and join every one of these bolts can be a bit painful. So I'm going to show you a new way that you can create a joint that's already got the parts in the right spot. It's called an as-built joint. So if I go to Assemble and then I say as-built joint, which is Shift J, it's saying which components do you want to join, where they are. I want this bolt joined to this frame. Click OK. So now that one's locked in. He can't move. I can't drag him out. So I'm going to repeat that process. Now, a simple way to repeat is to click your right mouse button and then drag upwards, and that'll repeat the last command. Now I want to select this component and this component. OK. Right click, repeat as built joint, this component, this component. Okay, that's put all those bolts in, and now they're jointed in place. I can't grab them and move them out. I need to get these bolts all the way around here. Now, I can actually create a pattern of these bolts, just like we did earlier with rectangular patterns. You can create a thing called a circular pattern. Even though this is a square, all of these things are 90 degrees out from each other around in a big circle. So I can say create a pattern, a circular pattern. The object I want to pattern are bolts, are the components, and the components are these 4 bolts. So I can either click them here in the model, or I can click them over here in the document tree. So that's got my 4 bolts that I'm going to pattern. The axes that I'm going to pattern them around, so now I've got to click on axes here to get the axes to come, the origin to show. And I want to go around that blue line there. Now it defaults to 3 quantities, which hasn't got them in the right spot. We want to would have 4 around our circle. And now you can see that that's put all of those bolts in the right spots around our design. So I can click OK. But the patterning doesn't pattern the joints. So if I grab one of these bolts, fair enough, it moves out. I'm going to Control Z that back. Now we could go around and do an as-built joint for each of those, but I'm going to actually show you another way to join a lot of things together at one time. And that's in your Assemble menu, and it's called a rigid group. So this is for doing more than 2 things. So what I want is I want this to be in the rigid group, this to be in the rigid group, and I can go over here and I can literally just clicking all of my items in my tree here. All right, that's got them all. That's got all the bolts rigided together, but I actually need to make them rigid to something in my design. So I'm just going to pick one of these pieces because that doesn't move. And then I'm going to click OK. So that, instead of having those joint origins everywhere all around my design, that's just done that in one simple operation. So now we have all of our bolts held in place. They can't go anywhere. And our robot is coming along. So that's going to be the end of this video. And next thing we're going to do is model up a belly pan to go on the bottom.